Good morning, everyone. Matt, Nomadic Native, back with you. Thanks for tuning in. So, 5 tips on how you can keep your Class A cooler when you're sitting in 95 to 100 degree heat and in full sun. Let's get started. Okay, for my first tip, it's parking surface and orientation. A lot of times, you're not going to have a choice in the surface that you're parked on or the orientation of your coach to the sun. For example, if you're staying in an RV park, you're pretty much going to park on their surface, and you're going to have to be oriented however they orient you. You're not going to have a choice. But if you do have a choice, and you're trying to keep the inside of your coach as cool as you can in the heat of the afternoon, consider the surface that you're parking on. We basically park on 4 different surfaces: grass, rock, concrete, and blacktop. Grass being the coolest, blacktop probably being the hottest. Orientation, we're talking about orientation to the sun. If you can orient your coach in such a way that you're keeping the hot afternoon sun from blaring down on the front of your coach where you have the big glass, you're going to be way ahead in trying to keep your coach cool in the afternoon. So that's my first tip. When you do have a choice, consider the surface that you're parking on and your orientation to the sun, and it'll go a long way in helping you keep your coach cool. My next tip is start early. Start early at cooling your coach off. If you wait until it feels like you need air conditioning inside your coach, you are behind the heat curve. As the temperature is rising, starting in the morning throughout the day, it's building up a heat load inside your RV. What we find is that if we start in the morning, keeping it not cold, but just a little bit on the chilly side in our RV throughout the day, we set the thermostats lower and lower and lower throughout the day to keep it just a little bit chilly inside our coach for as long as we can. By the time we hit the late afternoon, 5 o'clock, and it's 100 degrees outside, and that big sun is beating down on this RV, we're better able to maintain a comfortable temperature difference between outside air and inside air. I guess what we're doing is we're helping our air conditioners keep up with the heat load. So yeah, that's my second tip. Start early cooling the coach off. Now, this also comes into play when we're traveling, because when we're rolling down the road, we have the dash AC running. We don't have the air conditioners in the coach, the roof AC running. So about an hour out from when we're supposed to arrive wherever we're going, if it's summertime and it's hot outside, I'll start the generator as we're going down the road, and I'll come back here and turn on both of these ACs and set them, pretty low, so that by the time we arrive wherever we're going, we've already started removing that heat load from the coach. So yeah, in both cases, whether you're living the day-to-day in your RV or you're traveling, start early at cooling the coach off, and you'll be way ahead come late afternoon when it's really hot. Okay, so I'm not sure how much my next tip is going to apply to all classes of RVs, but if you have a Class A like we do, it probably will apply. You'll have to check, but it probably will. I'm standing up here in the cockpit of our RV, and in both Class A's that we've owned, what we've noticed is by far the cockpit of the RV is where the most heat infiltrates the coach from. This is the hottest spot in the RV by far. Okay. I've done a couple things to negate that, and the tip is insulate the front cap. Okay, so on the outside of the RV, you have that fiberglass front cap, right, up above the windshield. You probably have some lights up there and all that. When you come inside the RV, you have these cabinets, and both of our Class A's have had these, and on the other side of these cabinets is that fiberglass front cap. When you open the cabinet, you have these backer boards that create the cabinet for you, right? If you take off one of those backer boards and look in there, what you're going to see is the back side of that front cap. and you're going to see the wires coming through it for the lights, and there's going to be some spray foam sticky stuff in there holding all those wires in place, I guess, to keep them from bouncing around or something. And maybe that stuff has a little bit of R value, insulation value, I don't know. But mostly what you're going to see is a big cavernous area behind these cabinets, and behind that, or between the back of these cabinets and the fiberglass front cap. And that cavernous area holds and builds and transfers a ton of heat into the coach. So what I did was, I took off these backer boards and I went to Lowe's and I bought a roll of the pink fiberglass. I think it's R19. You know, the regular fiberglass that you would put in the wall of a house. And I came back and I insulated the front cap, and the difference was immediately noticeable. You won't realize just how much heat that transfers into the coach until you insulate it and feel the difference. It was very noticeable. Okay, so that's this tip: insulate the front cap. Now, we're looking up here in the coach, and I'd be, I don't know, a little remiss if I didn't mention all this glass. I'm not going to go too much into that into this video because it's been done in so many other videos everywhere, okay? But just for the sake of, you know, including everything, there's basically 3 ways of blocking the heat that comes through this glass, and it's a tremendous amount of heat. You need a way to block it, okay? We use Reflectix. There is the MCD day shade that you can see through. It does block some heat. And if you're familiar or a subscriber to our friends channel moving forward, Kenny and Sabrina, hi guys, they have one of the screens that you put on the outside of your front windshield. And of course that blocks a lot of heat. Now, the disadvantage of Reflectix is you can't see out. The MCD day shades and the outside covers you can see out. But I think if you're trying to keep it as cool as you possibly can in your coach, and you're shooting for keeping a good temperature inside in the late afternoon when it's really hot, I think the Reflectix probably blocks more heat. The disadvantage is you can't see out. So there you go. But this tip is insulate the front cap, and it will stop a tremendous amount of heat from infiltrating into your coach. Okay, so what you just saw was me dumping our 35 pint hisense dehumidifier down the drain. That has become an everyday chore. Even though we have all the windows closed and we're running the AC 24/7, keeping it cool in here, and even though that does drive the humidity down inside the coach, I'm still having to dump this every day. Now, if you've been out to the gathering in Quartzsite, Arizona in January, you've probably heard people complain about the heat even though it's January. And you've probably heard somebody else reply with, yeah, but it's a dry heat. Okay? So here's the thing. The lower you can keep the humidity inside your coach, the cooler it's going to feel. It just is, right? Now, one thing I will mention, when you're trying to keep the inside of your coach cool, the last thing you want to do is run something that produces heat. And pretty much anything you plug in to electricity and run is going to produce heat. A dehumidifier is no different. But the little bit of heat that it produces is greatly outweighed by the benefit that it delivers. Because, like I said, the lower you can keep the humidity inside your coach, the cooler it's going to feel in here. So that's this tip. Keep the humidity low and it'll feel a lot cooler inside your coach. So my last tip for this video is on air circulation. When we started RVing back in 2013, it didn't take us long at all to realize that, in the heat of the summer, when the air conditioners are running, they're blowing that cold air out, and the cold air is circulating here inside the coach. It feels fine. But as soon as the air conditioners meet the set temperature on the thermostat and they both shut down, and that cold air stops blowing and circulating through the coach, it starts to feel uncomfortable, and it starts to feel like it's warming up in here because the air is not circulating, okay? Kind of odd, but it's true, all right? So the tip is keep the cold air circulating and it'll feel cooler inside the coach, right? How do we do that? Well, obviously we use the obvious way. We use fans. We like the 3-speed oscillating fan, blows the cool air around and keeps us feeling comfortable. Now, if you don't have fans, you actually do. Your coach probably came with fans, your exhaust fans. I'll explain that. Our longtime subscribers will remember that when we first bought this coach, we took off out of Forest City, Iowa, headed northwest. We made it all the way up to Reno, and both of our Max Air exhaust fans stopped working. So we had to go to Winnebago up in Oregon and have them replaced. Well, when that happened, I broke out the book for the Max Air exhaust fans and read the book, believe it or not. I actually did that, okay? And what I found in there was this one little paragraph that said that if you close the lid on these exhaust fans and turn them on, they actually function kind of like a ceiling fan. They blow air up into that cover, and the cover turns the air around and forces it back down into the coach. And, it circulates the air a little bit. So, yeah, even if you don't, you just got your coach and you haven't had time to go out and get the fan yet or whatever, even if you don't have a fan, you actually do have fans. Just close the lid, turn the fan on high, and it'll circulate some air for you and help keep you cool. So, yeah, those are my 5 tips. I guess that's about it for this video. If you haven't subscribed, we invite you to subscribe and follow along. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We'll see you soon.